2, 1.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the meeting of the Staffing Matters and Urgency Committee. Everybody is here, that is expected, so there aren't any apologies to give at the start of the meeting. So whether you're taking part, watching at home, or in the meeting, welcome. First agenda item is declarations of interest. Any declarations on business on this agenda? So I'll just wait a couple of seconds, but I can see some shakes of heads, so no additional declarations to make at today's meeting. Agenda item 2 is exclusion of press and public, and you'll see from the printed agenda that annexes A and B to agenda item 9 and annex A, B and C of agenda item 10 on the grounds that they contain information relating to individuals and the financial affairs of particular persons are considered exempt, and that we should exclude the press and public when we get on to agenda items 9 and 10. I'd just like to see a show of hands if members are happy with that suggestion. Thank you very much. So that's agreed by all committee members. Then we'll move on to agenda item 3, which is the minutes, and they're set out on pages 1 to 4 from our previous meeting, which was on the 15th of March. And in a second, again, I'll just ask everybody to agree those minutes, but I'll just give a couple of seconds in case anybody has any matters arising. If not, if I could see all those in favour of accepting the minutes, please. So again, that's a clear majority in favour of accepting the minutes from the last meeting. That then takes us on to agenda item 4, public participation. And we have one public participant at today's meeting who is registered to speak on matters within the committee's remit, Gwen Swinburne. And Gwen, you'll know that you have 3 minutes to speak to us. Over to you.
Chair, there just appears to be a slight problem. If you just yes, there we go.
That's better, thank you.
Yeah.
You're back. I'll just say,
Yeah.
Gwen, if you didn't hear, that you have 3 minutes, and over to you.
Thank you. Now I've got you. Chair, thank you. Once again, the Council is being brought into disrepute by significant failings in its central service department. Just as at the last public interest report, the key failings are all in Ian Floyd's directorate. This time, as last, sharp practice, abuse and exploitation of governance, as well as management failings and overreach, have all been exploited to ensure that certain outcomes were achieved. The staffing committee turned out to be the vehicle exploited to meet these goals, whilst the whole council was deliberately removed from the process by confecting an early retirement. Chair, this committee, secrecy, each statutory officer, the head of HR, and no doubt others, are the problem. So what about the solution? My ideas. The Constitution is being reviewed now. This pivotal committee is too small and ineffectual, despite your efforts. To address this, it must be expanded to include more backbenchers and opposition members who can cast more critical eyes. Next, Chair, I know you tried, but the senior officer complaints and disciplinary procedures need to be strengthened. The key HR disciplinary performance management and annual review system are clearly all failing, as year in, year out, you are obligated to pay off poor performers through yet more restructures rather than performance manage them to improve or out. But with this discrete committee of 4, this is unlikely to happen. As last time, we see rather than sacking the then 2 staff involved, they have both now, under this administration, been promoted to Director and Chief Operating Officer. What an example to set. Chair, while these other processes will continue, this is the time for this committee to finally get a grip of its responsibilities, particularly in disciplinary matters of senior staff. May I suggest you start by growing the committee, changing its name to include disciplinary matters, and reviewing its terms of reference and the senior officer disciplinary processes. Finally, Chair, My citizens audit uncovered some expensive, non-standard employment practices unknown to most members. These interim and borrowed staff all cost us a fortune over and above their grade. Our own borrowed head of HR is one such person. We cannot afford to pay over £25,000 over the odds over a sustained time scale for these people. May I ask that every senior non-standard contract be reviewed here every 6 months alongside their full performance evaluations? We may then make some progress. Thank you so much, Chair.
Thank you very much for speaking to us and for your comments that I know committee members will take into account as we go through the agenda today. And I'm certainly happy to ask officers to look at those suggestions as part of the governance and constitution work that has been mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'll send them in to you as usual, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. So that then takes us as our only public participant through to agenda item 5, which is on changes to membership of committees, joint committees and other bodies, and that's set out between pages 5 to 8. Janie.
Thank you, Chair. So there's just one change which is for consideration this afternoon, and that is I've received a request relating to the Licensing and Regulatory Committee. The request is that Councillor Melly should replace Councillor Wells as the Vice Chair of that committee. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. So we've got the paper in front of us with the recommendation that is on page 6. So I'll just give a couple of seconds in case anybody's got any questions on that. If not, if I could please see all those in favour of accepting that. Thank you very much. So it's clear majority in favour of accepting that recommendation. And that then takes us on to agenda item 6, which is a request to extend the Interim Assistant Director of Housing. And I'll ask Trudy to introduce this to us.
Thank you, Chair. So this relates back to the CLG restructure that's been through this committee back in December, and you've received regular updates on that. Part of that restructure was the Assistant Director of Housing and Community Safety was deleted as part of that restructure. There was an interim arrangement in place until the end of March whilst we restructured as agreed at this committee. As part of that restructure, the corporate leadership group restructure is done, and the next level down is at head of service level, and we're currently in the process of restructuring at the head of service level, specifically in this housing directorate. It was hoped that we'd be able to do all that in time for kind of end of March, mid-April. However, in order to make sure that that consultation is meaningful and that we do it in line with the procedures, it's going to take a little bit longer. So we're coming back to this committee to ask for an extension on the interim assistant director of housing in order to give some of that continuity until the end of May 2021.
Thank you very much for that. And then very happy to open this for any questions or comments that any councillors have got. Only one I was going to mention, Trudy, is I noticed under the consultation section 15 that it makes a comment that the Chief Operating Officer is supportive of the proposal. And I know that I've spoken to Councillor Craghill as the executive member for housing, who is similarly supportive of the option 1 that is set out in the paper, particularly for that reason, paragraph 10 about providing some stability throughout the period until the new arrangements come into force for housing services and also the housing delivery programme. I can't see any other hands up, so we've got the recommendation in front of us, which is to accept option 1. If I could please see those in favour of that. Thank you very much. So again, that's a vast majority in favour of accepting option 1. So that then takes us back to the agenda, and we've got agenda item 7, which is the work plan for this committee on pages 13 to 16, and I'll go back to Trudy.
Yeah, it's there before you. There's no changes. The only change that I think there was, I'm sure in the last meeting, we were to report back in May on the kind of final stages of the CLG restructure, just to kind of provide committee with a final kind of a closed down report in a sense of that that's all been implemented. So it's just not noted on the work plan, but I will bring that back at the next meeting.
Thank you very much for that. Again, open it for any questions or comments on the work plan. If not, again, if I could please see those that are happy to accept the work plan. Thank you very much. A clear majority in favour of that. There are no items of urgent business that I have been told about. Therefore, that will take us in a second straight through to agenda items 9 and 10. But as we agreed at the start of the meeting, we'll exclude the press and public at this stage and just thank everybody for participating and watching the meeting. Thank you.